Right, hello everyone. This video is for your Year 10 Summer Mark. It's a guidance video. This is not going to provide you with the answers. There will be a second video coming out with model answers, with answers to work through, but only after you've submitted your end of year exam to us. This first one is for the Germany mark. There's 6 questions, as you know. 4 mark, 8 mark, 4 mark, 8 mark, 12 mark. I'm going to go through each question individually, what you need to do. Some of the hints, tips, guidance might be slightly different from what your teacher has originally given you. Please use whatever you feel most comfortable with. I will have phrases and sayings, Miss Edwards will have phrases and sayings for her groups. So please just use whatever you feel most comfortable with. Right, let's begin to look at these questions. First part of the paper is interpretation based. Here's the first interpretation. This is adapted from The Secret War Against Hitler by Fabian von Schaubendorf. Easy for me to say. So that first and foremost, that bit of information there is the provenance. The provenance is really, really important to you. Remember, it gives you the context for the interpretation. Usually it's going to tell you things like who's saying it, what they're saying, who's saying it, when they were saying it, the kind of time frame it sits in, the context of where they were saying it maybe. All of these things are going to be really important to you, understanding the message they are trying to get across. Remember, what is crucial here is they want to have an impact on the audience. They're set out to get a message across. Second bit of information is the content. The content is the information they want to get across, but also into the content we start to look beyond the information. Look, are they angry? Are they sad? Are they happy? Are they trying to make us laugh, make us cry, make us hate someone, make us love someone? What do they want to achieve from the audience? What are the message that they are trying to get across when they were doing this? Right, some things you need to think about. I put some hints and tips on there. Let me just grab the highlighter pen. First of all, when you read this, you will notice we have never ever talked about this guy Fabian von Schaubendorf, and therefore you may be tempted to panic. If this is the exam situation, you're thinking, oh my god, who is he? Don't know what I'm doing, don't know what to do about it. But read on and you will get some more clues. Schaubendorf was a German officer who was part of the group that tried to assassinate Hitler in July 1944. Now, automatically you should start to think, yes, that makes sense to me now, because I know in July 1944 it was the bomb plot, and I know the bomb plot is linked to Stauffenberg, and that was called Operation Valkyrie. I know that, so therefore actually I do know what they're talking about. I don't need to be worried. Secondly, you read on a bit more and it says he became a Christian minister and later worked as a judge. Now here's a guy who goes on, works in the church, works as a judge. In both those jobs, being impartial is really important, being fair is really important. So that might make us understand his own belief system, very, very Christian, and his belief system in legality and the law. So we might start to get a good idea of him as a person. Also, it should trigger some thoughts in our mind that we know there was a group in Germany called the Kreisau Circle. The Kreisau Circle believed they could be good Germans before being a good German didn't mean being a good Nazi, a very Christian group. And also there was some other Christian opposition, Protestant opposition, particularly in Germany, led by Niemöller and Bonhoeffer, and of course the Catholic opposition led by Cardinal Galen. So all of that information should now be swimming round in our heads before we've even looked at what they're saying. Now if you look at that, here's a guy, a Christian minister, books called Secret War Against Hitler, was involved in the bomb plot. I'm guessing the content, and before we read the content, should be going, Hitler was a bit of a nutter, we didn't really like him, we wanted to get rid of him, and this is why we wanted to do it. Let's have a look. What does the content actually say? It says the following. As a university student, here's the content bit here, look. As a university student, I read Nazi books which had ridiculous race theories and attacked Christian beliefs. Our anti-Nazi opposition in Germany was based on Christian faith. It was not started by army generals worried about military defeat. We had a clear conscience about trying to assassinate Hitler. Look, we were trying to kill Hitler because of our beliefs. We believed in God and the right thing to do. And the right thing to do is not this stupid race theory that the Nazis have been peddling. Exposed to the indoctrination techniques in school, exposed, but as a university student, wise enough to realise that's what they were. They were trying to indoctrinate us and make us think in a way, and we did not succumb to that. Now, you should be starting to think as well now about other university students in opposition, because there's a link here clearly to the White Rose group, Hans and Sophie Scholl. Now that, I've talked through it in about 4 minutes. In an exam, you've got to do that in about 20 seconds, because remember the 4-mark question, 4 minutes. So just think about that. Okay. The second interpretation, same we go. We look at it again. We look at the provenance. We look at the content. Then we begin to examine it. I've put some keywords up there, so let's do exactly the same process with this. Highlight pen. Adapted from something by Melita Mashman. Well, again, we've not heard of Melita Mashman, and she's writing in 1963, well after the war. She's had time to consider and think about what she's going to say. Previous interpretation, 1959. Again, 15 years after the war, they've had time to think and consider their actions during the war and what they're going to say later on. In this extract, she remembers the 44 bomb plot. Brilliant. They're talking about the same thing. So it makes them easier to compare. Mashman joined the League of German Maidens in 1933, age 15, and later became head of publicity for the BDM, League of German Maidens. And after the war, she was still very Nazi in her beliefs. It gives you a lot of information about this woman there. She went to those schools, was indoctrinated, believed the propaganda, and therefore believed in the Nazi ideal all the way through. She didn't stop believing that. Again, we should be able to work out what the content's going to say. Here you go. It's going to say, I love the Nazis, everything they did was great, these people who tried to kill Hitler were crazy. We despise the motives of the Germans who tried to assassinate Hitler. We believe they must be criminals or madmen. The opposition activities of the White Rose student group, Hans and Sophie Scholl, disturbed us. We have failed to persuade them to join our cause or make National Socialism attractive. She can't understand it. This is a failure. The fact that these people haven't bought into that Nazi belief is a failure. Why have they not made that happen? So when you've looked at the two interpretations, when you've done that little bit of analysis, annotation, highlighting, you're going to move on to the questions. Question 1, always the same. How does interpretation A differ from interpretation B? I pre-highlighted that. How is the physical thing? How are they different? You get these in the camera. Where's the camera? 2 pens. How are they different? One's purple, one's white with purple bits. Yeah. One light. If you press the end of this one lights up, the other one doesn't. They're the differences between the 2 pens. That's what they're saying. How is it different? Let's see what we need to do on this. Right. In your answer, 4 marks. Use content only. This is just about the content bits of those interpretations. Use the content only and P twice. 2-point evidence explain combination of sentences. Really important. That's all you do. It's only worth 4 marks. Don't write too much. You write too much, you're wasting time. They can only give you 4 marks. Question is all about the content and the interpretations. What it is saying and what is different, and then explain the difference. In interpretation A, it says that everybody loved Hitler and he was great, whereas in interpretation B, it says everybody hates Hitler. That's a difference. Yeah, this is different because one loves it. You've got to explain it. Start by saying what is similar. Now, here's my top tip for answering this question. Start by saying what is similar. Both interpretations talk about the July bomb plot. However, they are different because, the example I've given there, both interpretations discuss the impact of Nazi indoctrination. However, they're different because one is about the success of the indoctrination, one is about the failure of the indoctrination. Get those points in, explain them, 4 marks. Yeah, remember balance points, 2 equal chunks of writing. Yeah, not one massive piece of writing, one little piece of writing. You've got to have 2 balanced pieces of information. Question 2, always the same again. Why might the authors have different interpretations? This is the provenance question. Yeah, same again, 2P contents bit, but the question is all about the provenance. Look at the authors, look at where they came from, look at what they've experienced, look at what they've lived through, look at when they're writing, look at where they're writing. Look at those things that have impacted on their life, yeah, that have allowed them to come to different conclusions about this time period. What is it that's made them think, act, behave in that way? Time, place, experience, influence. Said those already. Think about that. Again, start by saying what is similar. Both interpretations focus on this. However, they have different views because, now I realise there's a typing mistake in there. I'll edit that out later. Yeah, what has made them have different views? A grew up in this kind of lifestyle, went to these kind of schools, did this kind of things. B grew up in this kind of lifestyle, did these kind of things. A's father was a Nazi, B's father was a communist. You know, only go with what you know. You can't make those things up, but you've got to make it fit in 2 balanced points. 2 equally balanced points. Question 3, always the same again. Which interpretation do you find more convincing? Which is the best? Which one do you believe? Which one's most accurate? It doesn't matter how you write it down. 8 marks. So you've got to have more in this answer. You've got to spend more time on it. about 5 minutes on question 1, 5 minutes on question 2. For this, you're looking at 12 minutes. Yeah, spend 12 minutes on it. More convincing just means more accurate. It's just saying, look, I've read this one, I've compared it to what I know, all that contextual knowledge, not the dates, the figures, the people, the stuff I know, and what I've done is use that to assess how valid, accurate, convincing it is. Pick out the most convincing bits of each. Now, you must talk about both. Pick out the bits of A that are convincing and tell me why that's convincing. Cross-reference of your own knowledge. So, in interpretation A, they say that many students did not believe in what Hitler was saying. I know this to be true because I know, for example, in 1940, Hans and Sophie Scholl were arrested for da-da-da-da. Back it up with what you're saying. Interpretation A, this is more convincing because Mashman worked for the BDM, therefore her own account is accurate because, you know, she's got information from inside the organisation. That makes it, you know, plausible, believable. Take that into account, use your own knowledge. And then finish with the most convincing bit. When you get to the end of the answer, you know, take two bits from each source, make sure you've got a couple of bits from each source, and then when you get to say overall, the bit that I find most convincing, take the most convincing part and use that for your conclusion. Back it up with your own knowledge, have your own knowledge in there to explain why. Okay, question 4. Describe 2 problems. Now, again, this is do what it says on the tin question. It asks you to describe 2 problems. You don't need 5 problems, you don't need 6 problems, you need 2 problems. That's it. That's all you're going to use. Again, equally balanced. Two, let me get these on the screen, 2 equally chunked parts of that. A couple of sentences each. Do exactly what you're asked to do, always. Start by stating when hyperinflation was. You should know it's 1920, so you can go, look, hyperinflation 1923 affected the German people and the German government. The problems it caused for the German government, one problem was this was a problem because, another problem was this was a problem because. So, 2 balance. One problem was which led to, which meant that. A repercussion of hyperinflation was. You've got to explain it. You can't just say a problem with hyperinflation was the government printed too much money. Well, actually, that's not a correct answer. The problem with hyperinflation was the overproduction of money meant devaluation of goods. This in turn led to, yeah? How do you get wages? How do you get people paid? You could talk about a repercussion. The repercussion of hyperinflation was, what did hyperinflation cause to happen and how did the German government deal with it? Think about those things. Question 5. In what ways were the lives of young people affected by Nazi policies? Now, the key bits in this question are explain your answer and in what ways. Yeah, we've got to work with those 2 points. Key skill here is knowledge. Show what you know. You're the expert. That's what your training is done. That's what all that learning is done. What is that knowledge you have built? Be specific, don't be general. Remember, it's not the same for everyone all the time. You can't just go, all people were in the Hitler Youth and they loved it. Nazi policies made all people join the BDM. Yeah, it's not true. It's different at different times. Yeah. Early in the Nazi reign, policies were X. This meant that Y. So you could say early in the Nazi reign, the Hitler Youth was really popular. By 1936, 66% of people were in the Hitler Youth. However, by 1938, they had to make this compulsory because. Yeah, I was saying, identify different periods at different times. So, you know, at the start of the war, it's great. Then at the start of the Nazi reign, it's great. Then they go off, so they make it law that you have to join. And then actually more and more people go, you know what, this is wrong. And they join opposition groups. So some people join the swing movement. Some people join the White Rose. Looks like older students join the White Rose movement. Some people join groups like the Edinburgh Pirates. Some are more active than others in their opposition. Some are just listening to jazz music. Some are openly beating up Hitler Youth and rescuing pilots who have been shot down during World War II. Think about eras, how you can define those eras. Early on in the Nazi reign, by the outbreak of war, in the era of total war. So you've got to have different people, different times, different impacts. It's not the same for everyone. Some policies are successful, some policies are unsuccessful. Some policies are really successful for working class boys, some policies are very unsuccessful for middle class girls. You've got to try and bring all of that information in to make it correct. And there you go, I'll put that when the Nazis first come to power in that. Right. Final question, the 12-mark question, it should take most of your time, it's worth most marks. Should probably in the exam have worked at this pace. 5 minutes for the first question, 5 minutes for the second question, 12 minutes for the third question. That's the first part of the exam. Yeah, 12, 5, 5, 22 minutes. 5 minutes for the next 4-mark question, 12 minutes for the next question. That's another 17 minutes. That's taking your total to 39 minutes. That means you've got in the exam 21 minutes left for this question. It's worth 12 marks. That should roughly be your times. Right. Which of the following groups benefited more from the Nazi economic policy? Explain your answer with reference to both groups. And the groups they give you are industrial workers, there you go, one group, and the owners of big business, the next group. They're the two groups they're giving you. You must talk about both of those groups. You must have a conclusion. So say, which one was it? Open with that point, finish with that point. Open with that point, finish with that point. Say what you're going to say it again. That essay building mantra. My introduction introduces what I'm going to say, then I explain it in more detail, then I refer back to it in my judgment section. Who are the industrial workers? Well, think about it. That's your average man in a factory. That's what we're talking about. How did it impact average man in a factory? And later on in the war, how did it affect average woman in factories? Remember the total war and the impact of that. Think about the things that were put in place and what benefited them. Did they benefit things like RAD, the DAF, the KDF? Remember what all those stands for? RAD, young topless men out doing things in the fields. DF, big trade union, canteens in the workplace, organised activities, radio, etc. KDF, strength through joy, all the bits. Reward the workers for all of these things. You know, did they benefit? Yes, no, explain. Big businesses, that's the owners, that's the people who own these businesses. How did they benefit? Well, government contracts. If you're building a big army, the rearmament, you're going to need guns. Guns need triggers. They need oil too, because they're made of wood and you have to oil them. You've got a load of new soldiers. They all need boots. They all need trousers. They all need underpants. They all need whatever. You know, it's the subsidiary industries. Go with them. Those contracts are given out by the government. If you are sweet talking the Nazis, you get contracts. If you don't understand that, if you struggle with that, if you've ever seen the film Schindler's List, you remember the start of Schindler's List. Oskar Schindler is out and about, and he's whining, dining, he's taking Nazi officers to dinner, he's sending them presents. The reason he's doing that is because they want them all to know who he is, and they go, oh, we've got a contract to make plates. Who do we know who makes plates? Oh, Oskar Schindler. That's what he's thinking about. Yeah. Think of then again how they also benefited. By the time of World War II, the SS are selling slave labour to them. They pay slave labour less than they pay full-time German labour. Well, in fact, they don't pay them anything. That's why it's slave labour. But they pay the SS to bring those people in to work for them. Overall, at the end, who's benefiting most? And the truth is, you've got to show how they link together. You've got to show positives and negatives. And you've got to sort of 21 minutes building that essay to write that. Finally, this last bit, you've all got a copy of this. It's really important. It's a breakdown, little checklist for each question. As you are doing this, have that in and go, yes, I've done that. Yes, I've done that. Yes, I've done that. Have it in front of you. So again, question 1, have you written about what, not why? Yes, I've talked about what. Have you explained how it's different? Yeah. Have you explained the physical difference? Yes, I've tick, tick, tick. And just go through tick, 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 tick. Always, always, always go through and tick, tick, tick. You follow this procedure. You've got good control of the English language, you've got good evidence and information because knowledge is the most important, you will pass this practice paper. Thank you very much for paying attention.